Today is Tuesday, October 18th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again.
Hello, welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Off to a great start.
Yeah, right on time.
Best
off to a great
start
start. I'm one of your co-hosts, Mike Schlau of Is Was Brewing, and I'm here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's great. Couldn't be better. Yeah.
I mean, one of our smoother openings and setting ups of all time.
Yeah, I mean, the fade was dead on.
Fade killing the fade.
Yeah.
Best fades in the game.
Yeah, and we're, it's I think, among the latest starts we've ever gotten. I think the only
It's
time
2
we've ever
a.m.
gotten started later was when literally the station somehow got shut down. The radio station lost signal.
How could that happen?
And somebody, probably me, pushed a button or something like that.
You were allowed to push buttons.
Yeah,
at
I
the radio
think
station?
I Skyped into the T-port incorrectly, and you know what happens when that goes down.
And that started the timeline where Donald Trump became president.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Thanks, Chris.
There was only room for one person to make it back to the normal reality, and that was me. And I put a bot in my place, a Borg, a member of the Borg, and that's me, and another member of the Borg who is still undetected. But anyway,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I'm doing well. So yeah, a little bit of a late start. We have a huge crew, one of the biggest
Biggest
ever.
in-person cruise of all time.
Yeah, one of the biggest, certainly the biggest that we've had at Beer Temple. Mm-hmm. We're in studio.
Definitely for people that are on
Foxy.
mic. There have been some peanut galleries that have gotten quite big.
Yeah.
Do you count all the people at the Reggaeton Festival on that one episode as being on the podcast? Because we could hear them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I would probably count them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're big beer heads.
yeah, I would count
Big
that.
craft beer nerds.
You know, I'm already going to interrupt you guys already. Okay, because, A, I was told I was going to the Insiders Roundtable podcast. Am I at the wrong show?
Right.
Is this the wrong show? Because this
mean,
feels
look
like
around.
This feels like an Insiders Roundtable.
Oh my God.
It feels like a rectangle.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
This feels like another one
Oh,
of those
there's-
shows that's going to last about 12 hours.
We'll see. We've got how many? How many people do we have here in
Too many
at
to
the
count.
round
Way
table?
too many
Yeah.
to count.
We're also trying some
We've
tech
got
stuff.
1,
so
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, depending on how many characters show up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
It's anywhere between 6 and 14.
Yeah.
Where,
Well,
depending
let's
on
just-
how the
let's-
jeweler is doing with the hovercrafts.
Right. That's true. We'll have to check in on Mr. Kona later on. I do want to start out by thanking Lumpin' Radio for having us on WLPN FM 105.5, Bridgeport, Chicago, and its fearless leader, its crew of fearless leaders. One of which, well, he's not really a leader, but he's an instrumental part is here in studio with us.
Logan?
He's not here, but a different one.
Oh, Jamie.
Jamie's here.
Yeah, Jamie's here in spirit.
Jamie's always here in spirit.
Yeah. How are you, Mike?
Good, you know?
Good.
Living the dream, as they say, when they don't have anything else to say.
Right. And then what I always say is nightmares are dreams, too.
Right.
Well, I think we should get right into it. We may have some technical... I'm already sweating at just the thought of what's about to transpire. So there may be some
Fearless
technical
leader.
issues, right? The people are watching the Phillies and the Padres in the other room. You may hear that. The
A lot
sounds
of
of people
Phillies and
enjoying.
Padres fans in Chicago, so it's
Yeah.
going to get rowdy in there.
Well, it's the halfway point between both of them, so there could be
Right,
some
they all
fists.
met here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
That's
is
how
where the
fandom
brawl,
works.
the rumbles go. Let's meet in Chicago for a rumble,
Right.
a game one rumble.
I watched the Yankees beat the Guardians to go to the ALCS today before the show.
Yeah,
Ate 2 hot dogs, which was probably a mistake at my own house. And here we are. But yeah, you texted me about a devastating loss earlier in the
Yes.
week, but we've rebounded, you know?
yes. So you're feeling better now.
Yeah, you just have to have 3 times the payroll of the team you're playing, and then you'll probably win in 5 games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're feeling better now.
Thank you so much.
So why don't we get right to it? Let's start with the introductions. We're going to introduce people the old-fashioned way, order of seniority, that being how many times they've been on. Mm-hmm. Pretty clear-cut. For as many people as we have, it's a pretty clear-cut order. First, the man who needs no introduction because he'll introduce himself by cutting in. Edmar, what's up, dude? How are you?
Hey, guys. It's great to be here. I'm a little disappointed at the format of the show's name, but it's cool.
Is it the shape of the table, or
Table, I can't tell if it's round or square. It's these
It's
glasses.
both. It's an optical illusion.
Let's let everyone think it's a giant round table.
Yeah, can we put some reverb
Like
on
King
this so it
Arthur's-
seems like we're
King
really far
Arthur's
away from each
table.
other?
There will be once Don starts talking. Don't worry.
You know, Chris, I'm not sure if I read your notes right, but I want to tell you about what I've been drinking recently.
Yes.
Is that part of the show format?
Yeah, we've changed it. So now when we
I'm
introduce,
just going to go right into it.
please do.
Yeah, it's good to see my friend Don here, and I'm saddened or happy to say that last night I was gaming, and I was drinking some hazy hero. Then, it was good gaming beer. I had some, low fills, and I actually had some Goldfinger Crowlers cans. It was,
Crowlers?
No, cans. 16-ounce cans.
Cans.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Those are just called cans.
Yeah,
really
make
good
some,
beer.
Make some wonderful beers.
I'm not sure which variant of the Pilsner or Lager I had, but they're all tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Did it help you with some of the new
The fragging,
maps?
no.
Yeah.
It turned
Oh.
pretty sour pretty quickly last night. It was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
What went
I had a
down?
good time.
Do you have time to explain? Or
I'm going to make up for it tonight. I want to come out of the show pumped.
All right.
What
Get
Ready
amped.
for the game.
What game are you
Battlefield,
Drive home 35
Battlefield
minutes and play
2042.
That's your jam, right?
Yeah, only Battlefield, sadly.
Hmm.
I'm waiting for Dark Tide to get out of beta. I know you guys don't know what I'm talking about. But
no?
it's okay.
Still rocking the
Is that a craft
tie-dye, I
beer?
see. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dark Tide.
There's definitely a brewery
Imperial
and
Rye.
a beer that is Dark Tide. There's 9,000 breweries.
Imperial Rye, barrel aged for 17 years.
It's funny. You tried to use hyperbole, but you undercounted the number of breweries that there are.
10,000 now.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a show. It's all about knowledge.
Are we going to place bets
Yeah.
that there's a beer
I knew
called
it
Dark
happened.
Tide? Okay.
So,
Been 100%.
thanks, Ed. Thanks for coming all the way up to Avondale. Appreciate it.
I've been upstairs for the past 6
true.
months.
6 months. Yeah.
True.
I'm glad you let him out finally.
Well, we put in the staircase.
Yeah, not only is there a beer, but there's a brewery. Dark Tide Brewing.
Well, I'm playing
And-
their video game.
So that's a good segue. Our next guest is
all about video games.
all about video games, loves them, knows a lot of people, none of which you'll ever hear about. Mr. Donn
Rob Todd.
Bichsel.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Actually, it's people that you'll never get a chance to meet, is what it is.
So withholding.
Damn.
So I am drinking a Coors Edge as I am on day 200 and something. The only reason I know that is because I was out for my weekly happy hour with my normal cast of characters, and I looked it up, and I had passed 200 days. So what
Yeah,
was-
last time you were on, last one or two times that you were on, I think you were on your little, not your little, your quest.
Yeah, I was going for 100, and I kind of passed that, and so now it's kind of become a game of how many beer events I can go to without drinking.
So do you think, I mean, in all honesty, do you think this is going to be a maybe forever thing?
No, it's definitely not a forever thing, but it's definitely a thing until my wife breaks before I do. So at this point in time. So there's 3 of us left. There was, I think, 6 to 8 of us in the beginning, and there's only 3
Seinfeldian.
left. There's 3 left.
I would be skidding in the first 45 minutes and slamming my money down.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, my
I saw a really great IPA across the street.
we were down in Las Vegas about a month ago, and we were out to dinner, and everybody around us was sitting there drinking cocktails, and I was trying to goad her into doing it, and she didn't do it. So So I am still on my way with my lovely Coors Edge tonight, which is right on the edge of tastiness.
Just teetering. It depends on how close you are to dropping out of the contest is how good it may or may not taste.
What is your favorite alternative beer you've had?
Believe
NA
it
beer.
or not, I think the best NA company by far is Athletic, but nobody recreates a crappy lager better than Budweiser. And Budweiser's is, I think, the best kind of similarity to a real beer. A friend of mine who had given up on the quest but is drinking very little, he referred to it as it's Budweiser without alcohol is skim milk compared to real Budweiser, but heavy
2%.
being whole milk.
Okay.
And so Bud Light is 2% in this analogy.
I'm trying to think if I've had one better than the Guinness one. I think that one might be my favorite, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I don't think you liked that, if I remember correctly. When I was here last, I poured it, and it was really sweet. Don't you remember? It was. Really,
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, it was. It pours really well, but it was kind of sweet. So.
I think I'm more of a hop water guy, personally, or like a elixir guy.
I do like some NA beers. Like if I want to drink a beer, but I don't want to drink it, I'm going to drink an NA beer.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if I actually make it through this year's Christmas party. I think that's going to be the real test.
Oh my gosh,
That sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
there.
I don't think. I mean, I won't be able to make it to a year if I don't get past that. But this year's party is definitely going to. The date has been chosen. One of two locations has been chosen. So it'll be interesting to see if I choose whether or not to drink.
Okay. Very cool. And I guess it's secret. You can't say the two locations because you don't want the other one to be too upset if they don't get it.
No, the other one knows about the other one. They know that we're dating.
Okay.
But
you just don't want to say.
no, not yet.
Okay. Got it. Well,
NA
thanks.
beers in Vegas too, right?
Thanks for coming on.
That's what you said? NA beers in
Yeah,
Vegas.
just NA beers in Vegas.
Right on.
Jude's, you're next, Jude. Some sort of issues going on with Jude's mic, so maybe Jude has to borrow a mic too. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
I'll just speak closer into it.
No, we'll fix it. Or we won't. We'll just share.
It's okay.
Just have
Oh,
three
there we
people.
go.
3 people in the cast. Yeah. So what's up, Jude?
Nothing much. What's going on here?
Nothing. What's new? Don't say nothing much. What's new with you?
Nothing. It's Halloween time. It's the best time of the year.
Nothing's going on with you professionally right now.
We're trying to open up a tap room, operating a brewery at the south side, or on the south side at the same time in Bedford Park. So like Mike said, just trying to live the dream. Excited it's Halloween time, though. Halloween Ends came out over the weekend, so that's a big time in the LaRose household is whenever Michael Myers has a brand new movie, we flock right away.
What are you going as for Halloween?
I'm going to go as the father of Pennywise, Ghostface, and a witch.
Ghostface the rapper.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
cool.
Who also appeared in Scream.
Be careful with
Yeah,
that. You
right.
don't want to get the face.
Really?
Yep.
That's ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to release Wu-Tang's 4th album on Halloween.
That'd be
Okay.
pretty sweet.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah, just stoked to be here. I think this is the first time I'm in this
Yeah.
part. One time we did a hot podcast back here. But
Yes.
This is cool.
That's true.
To
Yeah,
do it.
kind of an event turned podcast, right? Yeah, that's
know.
right. What beers have you been into lately?
Ooh. So I've been trying to set the record for most Pivo Pills 6-packs bought in the western suburbs.
Okay.
So I think
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
I'm
man.
on 11 or 12.
6-packs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And there were some good dates at the time. It was maybe 8/17 and there was an 8/11 Pivo.
What?
It was great. It was so good. And I learned
Of
that
this year?
Yeah, and there's some crazy, like on one side of Harlem Avenue and Elmwood Park.
Yeah.
They got the 8/11s, but anybody in the city got the, I don't know,
Right.
the 8/16s. Or I learned some crazy distribution laws about why this person has this area and this person has this area and how it could mess
It's
with
the
your Pivo.
cluster. It's the cluster.
So aside from a crap ton of lager, I bought beer the other day and tried to buy a beer that I haven't bought in a while and said, what were the beers that you were into? A couple years ago, I bought a Surly Coffee Bender.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it was delicious.
Yeah, that beer is great.
Everything you wanted it to be. Just roast, nice brown ale, crusher.
How often do you go into a shop as a brewery owner? I'm guessing not a lot of people do this, but how often do you, Jude, go into a shop and just pick up a random beer from another brewery, like the one that you've just not had in a long time and you want to revisit?
Often.
Okay.
All the time.
I mean, I do it a lot,
Yeah.
but I have different reasoning to do it. I just want to kind of...
I think early on, it was always about keeping your ear to the ground and figuring out what's kind of up and coming, and especially like if someone's going to use an ingredient that you haven't used yet that you were interested in, it was always great, that someone did it before you and maybe just took the shot. But there's so many, we just think of all the beers that we bought here or anywhere else that, played a huge role as you were cutting your teeth, like developing like a palate and stuff like that. And then, you go on your little cyclical journey and then you figure you got to go back. And so those, beers like Surly or anything else, it's like, let's go revisit and see what this beer tastes like, 5-6 years later. So it's cool.
Nice.
It's a nice little check, but all the time.
I'm glad to hear that. I think it's cool that you do that. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Last but not least, we've got Mr. Kevin Carey of Begyle Brewing. What's up, dude? Sitting directly to my right.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, dude? How are you?
We're neighbors in life and at the table.
And at the table, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you walk. You see you out with a family.
Yep.
Yes, here we are.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Excited to be here.
It's been too long.
Yeah,
what's new with you guys?
Well, yeah. So this is my first time since Bridgeport. I almost drove to Bridgeport tonight, but
nice. I try to shoot emails like reminder. It's at the Beer Temple.
I thought I was being funny. I texted Mike and said Bridgeport's a lot farther than I remember, and then he didn't respond
because we were very coolly setting up all the microphones very correctly and accurately.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then I said just kidding because I thought maybe he thought I was serious. So
yeah.
But no, we just turned 10. Actually, I got a Facebook reminder.
Hey.
Thank you. Believe it or not,
big deal.
We're turning 10 at this exact moment.
Whoa!
I got a Facebook reminder. Yeah.
Hey, wait! You have some beer. We should get some beer open for.
We got
beer.
That batch 1000
barley wine.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, so I got a Facebook reminder today that 10 years ago tonight we tapped our first kegs at Floyd's Pub in Bucktown.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Every
man.
year I'm like, I'm going to write this down so I remember next year, and I didn't. So.
It was a Facebook reminder. That's
it was a Facebook reminder. Yeah,
I love it. That
I mean, we have like kind of like
it's
like we brewed this day, we gave away, we poured at a festival, we put beer at my business partner's wedding, and so like the first few rounds of beers were for festivals and other stuff, and so first kegs we ever sold was today.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Thank
you for sharing your special day with us.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, and we just had a party last weekend with our neighbors, Dovetail. I don't know if you guys know those guys. But we had about 8,000 people come out over 2 days.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was silly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you now the oldest brewery on Malt Row?
We are. Yeah.
Always have been, right?
Yeah, actually, I think.
Well, do you count Half Acre?
What about Metro?
So
Metro's not on Malt Row anymore.
They moved.
But that wasn't always have been then.
Well, that wasn't. The Malt Row didn't exist for a long time.
They started. They were the brewery on Malt Row before Malt Row was a thing.
More like Malt Lane back then.
What's the difference? Yeah,
cul-de-sac. I think it was a cul-de-sac.
It's called a brewery back then.
I'm like Norm Macdonald. I love it when it just dies. I'll just sit with it. Let it
but his jokes are funny.
Then why weren't people laughing? See, when I'm dead and gone, I'll be seen as a legend, and then I'll truly be appreciated.
Oh boy. Anyway, so you're on Malt Row, huh, Kevin?
Yeah, we're the gateway to Malt Row, conveniently located 2 blocks south and east of Hot Butcher Brewing Company. Hot Butcher beer for the world. Sorry,
Use this one.
Hot Butcher for the World opening soon.
Yeah.
My mic's not working.
No. So what we're gonna do is after we do the intros, we'll take a quick break and we'll reset everybody. So, back to go for it. You gonna say something?
No, I got nothing to say.
Okay.
No, you were going to give us the exact date you were opening the tap room?
No, I wasn't going to take the mic.
The mic didn't pick it up. He did say it. The mic didn't pick it up.
Co-host.
I just wanted to know if you're filling growlers.
Yes.
You are. Okay.
Isn't that going to be your business model? That location is only growler fills, I heard.
I'm doing it just for you.
Yeah,
Because you don't like growlers.
No, I don't think times change, people change. So I'm all growler now. We're converting to all growler too.
Or I saw a crawler today. Somebody filled some Revolution barrel-aged variants into baby bottles. Did you guys see this on the internet?
No.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, they apparently bought tasters and poured them into baby milk bottles.
Oh, actual.
And then bragged about it.
Nice.
On Reddit and Facebook.
Why? Why did they brag? Why did they brag about
I
it?
don't know. It was incredible.
Okay.
Chris, I wish you would give me 10 minutes one time to talk about the value of growlers and the power of experience that is inherent in said growlers.
Yeah.
And the experiential, aromatic, flavorful moments that could result from picking up said growler. But I don't know if
But only
now,
if it's picked
now
up,
is the time to do it.
only when it's done at a tap room, though.
Right.
At a licensed brewer's tap room.
Jude, we did do that. Remember when you and I did a one-on-one podcast? We talked about growlers for like 15 minutes.
That's because we drank a case of Gumball Head that day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get this kicked off. Let's take a quick break. We'll reconfigure everybody, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the roundtable. All right, be right back. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Your hosts for this. See, I can't ever get it. See, you're the best at it, Mike. I think you should take on all intro and outro duties at this point.
I think you got it. You're killing it.
Well, see what I've gotten away from is having all that stuff written down, as you know, and certainly as Serge knows. I had all that stuff just written, and I would read it every time, and people would joke that I'd done it 200 times, and then as soon as it wasn't on, I would mess it up, and now you know why, because I can't do it. But anyway, we're back. We've got Jude, Donn, Edmar, and Kevin, and we've got a lot of topics to talk about. Not all of them are maybe feel good. We've got some live streaming going on. You on Twitch, Jude? Okay.
Okay, Jude's playing Roblox.
Yeah.
In the corner.
Yeah. Let's start with what I see as kind of an outlier to where we may go with the rest of the topics, which is Book club. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I totally forgot the biggest thing that I had right on the front. So, yeah, we've got the book club coming up. We've already received a handwritten letter for the book club, by the way.
Wow.
So the book is going to be barrel-aged stout and selling out. We have Josh.
Always topical.
Noel.
Release.
Mm-hmm. New release. Mm-hmm. He's going to come in, and so if you guys have read the book, or have, well, if you haven't, read it, get it, read it, and then if there's any questions you have for Josh or comments, we'll read them for him and on the air, and we'll just have our own little book club. Yeah. And if you've read that book, I'm sure there's some insider tidbits that you want to know from Josh, and enough time has passed that we'll get him. We'll get him. We'll give him a couple beers ahead of time.
And if you haven't, it's like one of the best narrative beer books I've ever read in my life.
Absolutely.
It's really well done.
Totally.
So you'll enjoy the read, and then you'll have context for what we're talking about.
I think anyone who listens to this show who hasn't read that book, I'm confident in saying will really enjoy the book. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So that's Barrel Aged Out and Selling Out. Go read it, and that is the next beer club that we are. What was it called? Beer Book Club? Beer Book Club.
Beer Temple Book Club?
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
All right. So now that that's out of the way, there's a second story that also might be different from some of the other stories we're going to talk about, and that is Trillium Brewing. Can we start? Is it okay? Yeah. May we start talking about Trillium?
Hey, you're the co-host of the show. You can talk about whatever you want.
I have to ask you as well, but I got a couple nods.
Yeah, you're good.
So the first thing I heard, it's interesting. So Trillium launching in Wisconsin. I believe it was either last week or this week. They're launching in Wisconsin.
I don't know. Which other states are they in besides Massachusetts? Are they in several other states? Probably, right?
They got to be in Connecticut. They got to be in a bunch of New England states.
when the
I don't know.
pandemic
I've never
hit-
seen them in Connecticut. I'm
Yeah.
from Connecticut. I've been there.
So what? There's like
They have a brewery there.
yeah.
They have a farm there.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm sure they're there, though. I just don't buy that much beer when I'm with my parents.
There's 5 states you can send beer to, right? With relaxed rules, relaxed laws, and they're all within the Northeast. So I think when COVID hit, everyone started doing that, especially all the breweries around there. But I think if you follow Instagram, they've been sending more and more beer out of state in places other than Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire. I think Kentucky's got some relaxed laws. DC's got relaxed laws.
for sure.
But it looks like they're opening up in states that you haven't seen, or maybe states you wouldn't expect. Wisconsin being one of them.
Right. Yes,
They direct ship to Nebraska.
Just Nebraska?
Well, one of he named a bunch of them, but
Yeah.
I thought Nebraska was an interesting one.
That is
It's
interesting.
where they have favorable laws that allow for direct-to-consumer shipping.
Also, the hometown of one of the greatest bands in the country,
311.
311.
Are they 311?
No, 311. You're
Oh,
right. You're totally
sorry.
right. Yeah. Who is playing the House of Blues this weekend? They're playing the Blue album in its entirety. The first time ever at the House of Blues in their 30-year history.
So are you just going to get a room above the House of Blues and just stay there for the weekend?
It's already booked. It's the hotel autograph collection right
See?
next door
I
on
knew it.
Saturday, and then they're playing Transistor in its entirety on Sunday. So that's already done.
Okay.
Wow.
Sweet.
They do that just for
But-
you?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they booked the
great.
room. He already had the room, and then they decided to book the gigs
That's
to
great.
go inside.
They played the Metro and 99,000 people. That was the first time I ever saw 311 was at the Metro. But they played the Vic. They played the Riv. They've played the Metro. They've played Northerly Island.
They played Central Michigan University.
Right on.
2005.
Right on. Shout out. First time at the House of Blues.
Cool.
They played
What were we
Danbury,
talking about? Oh, we were talking
Connecticut.
about Trillium.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big deal that they're sending beer to Wisconsin.
It is. It's interesting. I think it does play into where we're headed. The other news with them is that they're selling their old brewery, right?
they're
Not
like-
the giant, massive, huge brewery, but the other pretty giant, massive one they had before
and not
that.
their like first brewery. Like,
Right.
This is like the intermediate step.
But it's big.
But it's big. It's bigger than most. It's like a 25,000 barrel production turnkey brewery that they're listing for sale.
And this is just a story.
With
This is a
huge
success
tap room and
story.
stuff.
This is something that's built and built and built and built.
right.
It started off at, I don't know much about like downtown Boston, but I saw where they started, and if there's like a side street to a downtown area, that's where they were filling growlers and just small batch bottles of beer, of farmhouse beers, and they started getting like London 3 Happy beers.
One of the first.
Yeah.
One of the first.
So my understanding on that though is that it started in that tiny location. It looks like they had a lot to turn it around, and then they expanded into I think it was Canton, or no, maybe that's Treehouse, but a bigger place.
No, Canton.
Yeah,
Canton. Yeah.
a bigger place, and then they ultimately moved into the Reebok facility.
Right. Canton is where they are now. The massive one is in Canton.
Well, they're both
visited.
in Canton.
Oh, they are.
The one
They
they're
are.
selling is in Canton too, I believe, right?
Oh, okay.
I think they're selling the equipment, but it's a leased. They didn't own the.
They don't own the
property.
building,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So I think they own the Reebok building. Do they own that whole campus?
The whole thing, yeah.
That
It's
campus is huge.
massive. You've been?
Huge.
No,
Kevin?
I looked it up when I got the itinerary for today. I looked it up on Google Earth, and I was like, "What is this track?"
Do you remember
Next to
Edmar and Mike? When I went there, I was texting you guys about it. I was like, "This place is insane."
Yeah,
we
you
were
were
estimating that
running
they had
laps and
like 500 car parking lot, like huge. I cannot think of a bigger tap room
Treehouse,
I've ever
maybe.
been to. I've ever been to.
Oh, you've
yeah.
been to, gotcha.
Yeah, but
Treehouse is even. We just went back this summer on a family vacation to Treehouse. We were there 4 years ago, and it was insane. It was like it looked like they were building something next door, like a resort or something. But
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
just
they
like,
do own a golf course.
They own a
now.
golf course
Yeah.
now, yeah.
But I was like, I went
In
4 years.
college.
Yeah, 4 years ago I went and we had a great time. But this time it was like I heard somebody the night before we were in Portland, Maine, and we heard somebody talking about Treehouse as Disneyland, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's hyperbolic, maybe. I don't know. And then I went with my daughter, and I don't know if it's because I was there with my daughter, but she had the best time. And now I am a Treehouse fanboy. I guess. Yeah.
You joined Chris.
Yeah. It was
King Julius.
Yeah.
They
Whenever they announce it, I'm
I've waited
in
so
my
long
car
to make
and
that
going.
joke.
They had 20 lagers on tap.
Wow.
How many beers total did they have on tap?
It had to have been over 40. Yeah. Because
And 20
They have an
lagers.
entire
Lagers.
bar that's dedicated to classic styles.
they turned their original bar at the new location into a lager and pale ale bar. And then all the IPAs are at their new bar.
So crazy. It is like Disney World.
It really was.
It's like Disney World.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I told my wife when we were out to dinner, and I was like, I think they're like kind of crazy. And then we went the next day, and I was like, no, this is even crazier than I remember. Like, it's just.
I remember during COVID, they had the most insane, well-run online ordering system, I think, bar none, any category that I'd ever dealt with. I think there was me and a friend putting in orders that a third person ended up picking up. So me and a friend, my wife ended up picking it up. It was just like, went right in there, and then we're like, oh, there's these two orders. Can you combine them? Yep, no problem. She went there. Both of them were put together, and she just, like, picked them up. It was, like, no time, and just walked away. And it was, like, you know, $175 or $200 worth of beer. And it was just, like, nothing. And it was a line, and everybody, she said, oh, my gosh, like, half the people had dollies. And they had like just
so many walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Walkie-talkies and like tons and tons of dollies that they're like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll dolly it out for you. Boom, 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 boom. It's like amazing.
They're still running that. The only way you can buy to go now is through their own. They have their own point of sale. So you go onto their website,
amazing.
And it's like Treehouse point of sale, and you pick everything you want, and then you give them 5 minutes, and they'll call your number out. And there was a fleet of like 40 hand trucks.
Yeah.
So I bought a case and a half and a couple bottles of liquor. Wanted to try their liquor, and when we were going in, I was like, I can't buy any more beer on the East Coast. And people were coming out with 5 or 6 cases at a time. So I bought 1.5, and I was okay. I didn't get into too much trouble.
I remember hearing, I think I've mentioned on the show before, that at one point I don't know if it was something to do with like the wastewater or something, in the local municipality like couldn't handle an expansion they wanted, so they did all of the infrastructure for the entire municipality to get it up to where they needed it to be out of their.
They created a lake
out of their own pocket. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it's bananas.
I mean, we've done the back of the napkin math, and it's like bonkers numbers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Like,
well, we're waiting to open our tap room until we can negotiate credit card fees for the Treehouse point of sale system.
You're just going to completely revamp. You got to completely revamp the Chicago water system before you guys can open.
They built an ocean.
Yeah.
In order to make it happen.
The Atlantic wasn't there before Treehouse.
But
if I ever do a Hop Butcher collab, I'm just going to say right now, I'm gonna ask that it be called King Jude Lias, just so you know.
Oh wow,
it's already taken.
Yeah, let's
there you go.
It's a great story, though. I mean, I think that JC and Esther, the owners of the brewery
of Trillium,
going back to Trillium.
Yeah, and I want to ask Donn and Kevin how they feel about this as well, about the move into Wisconsin specifically. But go on.
Seem like very earnest, passionate people who, in maybe 2012 they're getting this together, maybe earlier, 11. 12, 13, 14, find a space, decide to turn it upside down and sell beer, and they probably got a dream, and it works out, and then they go into a bigger space, that, does what they need it to do, and they move it, and who knows if they bought it or they leased it, but that they're selling beer that they can't imagine that they used to sell, and their dreams are coming true, and then it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it becomes like just a product of what they did, and then, years later, they've got all these properties. So I'm sure that they've, achieved more success than they could ever imagine they did. And that kind of comes along with starting super, super small. I mean, I feel if you look back at old pictures of what that Fort Point location looks like behind the street, that how they had to get tanks up and this and that and forklift things and glycol systems that weren't really working, and just to make just to make beer and get beer cold was crazy. And then that people got enthusiastic, and here they are, and this is a product of what it is.
For sure.
And now that they've got an ability to say we've got a turnkey operation that we could, bring to another brewery that's looking, for a home.
Looking for probably a second home, right? I mean, that's not a first brewer. Well, I mean, maybe it is, but depending on the price. But it sounds to me like somebody who's looking to take the next step.
Yeah, it'd be a pretty big swing to start your first brewery at 25,000 barrels.
Yeah, nowadays anyway. So what about the move into distribution or doing drops even? My guess is it's going to be some sort of a drop thing that they're doing in Wisconsin. I doubt it would be we're going to have steady lines and all the chains and we're going to have 30-day minimum inventory. My guess is it'll be a hot drop sitch, right? I would assume, right, Kevin? What do you think?
Yeah.
So do you have any I don't know. Do you have any opinions or any feelings about Trillium coming into Wisconsin? And if no, that's okay. And then I want to ask Donn too. But Don's, I think, doing work. He's consulting right now.
He's running the Nielsen data.
Yeah.
About Trillium in Wisconsin specifically. He's drilling down. No, I would say I have no feelings
None. Okay.
one way or the other than, I think it's the drop thing overall is interesting.
Right.
Going from Boston to Wisconsin is an interesting one in this time where locality matters. I think that they have a national brand, so you do have that immediate excitement. I think I remember thinking of when Other Half first did a drop in Chicago and thinking about the frenzy that there was for that. And so I feel like maybe that's something you'll see. Can they establish and be an everyday brand? I think it comes down to a lot of factors. Price is going to be a huge problem, I think. You're shipping from the East Coast, and then already higher price point beers. Talking about the London 3 beers, the hazies, IPAs. I think consumers are getting a little. I feel like consumers are getting worn out on expensive 4-packs.
Yeah.
So I just think you're pushing a rock uphill a little bit.
But aren't we going to go to the Mars Castle tomorrow?
The Cheese Castle?
Yeah.
And
then
MARS.
just go buy as much as we can in Wisconsin.
Go to yeah.
I mean, we're all going to do that.
We'll go there. We'll get our New Glarus and our Trillium. That's what you do. Yeah. You go to the Cheese Castle. You get Spotted Cow, and
it's selling out.
Yeah.
When all the retailers that post on Instagram that get it, it's
I'm
moving.
Sure.
Well,
sure.
There's a handful of brands in craft beer in America that can do that, right? Where it's you can go into basically any state and have enough people that are aware of you because of your reputation or accolades or internet presence, and you just drop whatever beers you need to for that time, and they just evaporate. And then instead of having boots on the ground and trying to get tap handles and all that, there's a class of brewery that's very small but very effective at just dropping beer at places and then coming back later and dropping a little bit more. And they're figuring out that. I think.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
Other Half was doing it here for a while. I think they oversaturate a little bit, and then they haven't been around as much, and then now they're back, and then they figure out how to keep that allure and also maximize the amount of revenue they can
there's got to be
make.
a balance.
Right.
Yeah. What's your take on that? Do you have a general feeling when you see that there's this hot brand that is deciding to go into Wisconsin of all places? Why are they doing that? What was the decision? I mean, maybe they have family there. Who knows? But
yeah, I believe that Wisconsin's still number one as far as beer consumption in the United States, if not number one in the top 2 or 3. Everything that is selling right now still continues to be kind of contrary, Kevin, unfortunately, to what you were just saying. Is that the 4-packs and the high-priced, high-gravity items are still selling very well.
In general, or are you talking specifically?
In general, yeah. That category is still on fire. There's no clear replacement with RTDs or any of the FMBs or any of the other products out there for a hazy IPA. There just isn't currently. So those products are still selling. I was kind of actually feverishly playing around on my computer besides doing HR work,
I'm Team Kevin, by the way.
I
truly am.
I was looking up who their distributor was, and I couldn't find it. I was trying to look up and see who their distributor partner was and who they were going with there, because it sure was smelling like all the other locations you were talking about were smelling like Sheehan. But I don't think that they're a Sheehan distributor, because
I think
that's
it's smaller
kind of the
craft
locations.
There's two craft, like small craft distributors in Wisconsin, and one is called Pequod, and then
Pizza?
No, Pequod distributor, yeah. And then there's another one, and I think they're with one of the two.
I think it's. I actually think it's kind of smart. I do think that there isn't a long-term play here, though. I mean, at some point in time, I think the allure will run out, no matter how much you try to do your best to make sure that you're just sending just enough. No matter who you are, the first time you send a truck, it all goes away. The next time you send a truck, it goes away a little less quickly. The next time, it doesn't all go away, and maybe it lasts a little while longer. But
you probably extend it by going to other markets and doing it somewhere.
There's an end. There's an end to this, but I am very.
So is
curious.
it like a middle? Is it like a stopgap? Is kind of a harsh term, but is it kind of a middle point until you figure out maybe what you want your other, like your permanent distribution footprint to look like? And until we figure that out, maybe we can do these spot drops for a couple of years, because I'm with you. It seems like there is going to be diminishing returns, and you could do that maybe for a couple of years, even if you're doing it well. Why don't we drop some in San Diego? Why don't we drop some in Portland? Why don't we drop some in Texas? Why don't we drop and you can do that, and then, we'll come back to Wisconsin now. You could probably do that for a while. I do tend to think that it does drop your cachet slightly every time you do it nationally.
Yeah, 100%. But I do like where you're going as far as maybe if they're just testing the water. The problem is, even in some of these states that they're going into, there still are franchise laws. I mean, if they're making these secret agreements with these small distributors with the premise of, hey, you're going to release our brand rights, the state laws still supersede them. So, I mean, maybe they'll get away with, having these partnerships in the short term, but at some point in time, somebody's going to say, you want to leave us?
Gee whiz, I really wish I could let you go. Man, I wish I could let you go, Trillium. But the state law says I have to lock you in forever.
But not if you signed. What if you signed, we're going to do this for 6 months. This is and it just spells it all out. No? Get out.
No, all the state laws supersede any contracts.
You can write whatever the hell you want.
Can't break the law.
But you don't sign that. You just signed a temporary distribution
if you're
agreement.
One, Mike.
Don't even sign an agreement.
You can write absolutely whatever you want, but state law still supersedes anything that you write. That's why I always love these the festivals that they put together, these agreements, and you know what I mean. In some states, yes, I mean you can write something that's only good for X amount of days for a location if you write it specifically for this festival, for this event. But the minute you start going out into the market, the state laws override whatever it is you've signed. I mean, there's a couple of pretty expensive things that are going on right now in the country, and one of them has to do with a brand that doesn't even have alcohol in it that thought that they'd be able to move, but because of the fact that they are under the same kind of perception as a beer, they're having difficulties making a move without compensation. So.
Interesting. That's kind of like as a,
That's a freebie, by the way.
Yeah.
From Donn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
First one's free.
I mean, I think I'm realizing it, much to my own chagrin. I'm like Bizarro Jude. Jude naturally sees something, and he sees what is beautiful and wonderful about something, and my mind naturally goes to Wisconsin. Why they go something? They obviously don't want to go there. Why are they going there? So it's just funny. I love having Jude on because it's interesting to be like, oh wow, people are. I guess there could be a good-hearted reason for it or a positive reason for it.
Well, it's not lost on me that with all these moves that they're making, that they have to sell more beer. So obvious, it's like, all right, so let's send it around. And if it's a first-time thing or it's a one-time thing, and it's like people from Wisconsin love this and they see it on Instagram all the time, and it's like they would be so stoked to get our beer, and that's a cool thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm
totally.
driving there and getting some.
Right.
I feel great about it.
Right. It could be
And it is. There's beauty in that, but they've got a farm and this and that, and you're like, someone's got to sell beer.
Right. Well, there's also just a different approach to lever pulling, right? Where instead
Yeah.
of being like, we're ever going to go to Chicago where there's a bunch of people, it's like, we're going to go a little outside of there. We're going to go to Wisconsin. It's going to be a little bit different.
It's definitely pulling a lever.
I
without
bet you what's happening is that someone has relatives.
Right.
in
They
Milwaukee,
want to write off their trip
and
to
they've
the
been
Wisconsin Dells.
They've been asking about getting the beer in Milwaukee for 7 years now.
But Mike, I think you bring up a really good point. I think it's kind of brilliant actually going not to Chicago and going in the surrounding areas. But I do agree that there's probably something else behind here. That's behind it, and that's kind of what I was looking at to see who their distributor partner was and who they were going with. But they will sell out all of this product. I mean, it'll sell out for multiple times. I mean, we've got distributors that were built on this. I mean, 12%. I mean, there's distributor models, and there's another one that's out there now, actually. I can't remember the name of, that's doing this same concept, that they're going into markets, they're doing drops, and then they're going away. I mean, it does work for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, it will run its course.
Yeah, and then they can pull a different lever, maybe.
Sure.
Go for
It's
it.
all a ploy to collab with New Glarus, is what you're saying? That's really what it is.
Well,
They're looking for those blended margins.
Well, it's also breweries that have built their reputation and names on beers that don't easily translate to we're going to put a relatively affordable half barrel in the market and have people hit boots on the ground and sell it everywhere, right? So, like, what options do you really have? Can you just overnight become like a New Glarus that has like all these incredibly drinkable beers, or your whole brand cachet and recognition is to be like, we make these types of beers? So you have to have a different approach to how you're going to get them to different places or a different scale, So it doesn't work. It's not the same model as like we make beer that we want to put on draft at the highest volume bars. So
Also, though, like, is there like an expiration date in your mind, especially if like you own a brewery and you're like, we can only be this exclusive for a certain amount of time? So at a certain point, like, we need to open this up.
But there's a few breweries who have shown that can be extended for a very, very long time. Not indefinitely.
Who's that?
Well, I think Treehouse, Hill Farm, and Three Floyds have shown that you can extend
I wouldn't put
it.
Three Floyds in that.
I would not right now.
Not at all.
Hold on.
Okay.
They've been around since 96.
Sure.
From 96 to 20, I don't know, like 18?
No, from 90 to what date? From 96 until their beer showed up at Costco.
What year was that?
I mean, 3 years ago.
Okay, so 2018.
But they did. But I do agree with you. They did it the longest.
They did it the longest,
Yeah,
man.
they did it the longest.
They did the longest time-wise, but they didn't do the same dollars that place like that Treehouse,
Maybe
and
not.
Hill Farms that are doing. Like that, those are different.
I don't know.
beasts.
That I don't know. I don't know about dollars and like over that amount of time, but they did maybe show that you could stay kind of like hyped.
Oh, they did it the best. I mean, I don't know if
For
they'll ever
20
be another,
years.
They'll be.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll ever be another brewery that does it as well as they did. I mean, they kept price point. I mean, the fact that they were able to set price in the marketplace, not only in their six packs but also in their draft. I mean, they maintained and still maintain that cool factor. I don't think there's ever been anybody that's done it better than Three Floyds.
Yeah.
They basically pushed it so small guys like us could survive. They pushed the price up and allowed ourselves to compete in the marketplace. But yeah, Three Floyds is definitely one of the big guys. I would agree with you, Chris.
I remember people were like, $14 for a 6-pack of Zombie Dust is so expensive. And now you look at some of the 4-pack
Nobody
prices
cares.
and it's crazy.
No one cared.
Yeah.
No one cared when Zombie Dust was $13, $14, $16, $20. You could sell for whatever the heck you want. You guys were the original Dust Brothers. You remember those days.
Is that a good beer?
Yeah, and kind of back to what Edmar was saying, that is probably one of the coolest things that they really did, is that they made sure that the other accounts, the other cool kid accounts, the ones that could really make and use the money, got their beers and then got the hype. That the Zombie Dust only went to certain accounts. It's pretty amazing what they did.
The only time the TTB ever came to Pipeworks was to leaf through our invoices and then ask about if we knew anything about price fixing for Zombie Dust. I
That
kid
is
you not.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We were all so nervous, and then there's like, what do you know about like this place selling zombies for this much? I'm like, we don't have any idea what you're talking about. Like,
That's funny.
Your primary source.
yeah.
I got two things. One's for Ed. The first time that, so you're at Three Floyds, not you are, but I am at Three Floyds. They're like, when are you selling this thing? When is this hitting bottles? And then they snuck in the artwork, where they used to show like the horror movies or the kung fu movies right there to like the right of the bar. And then they hung like the flag of the zombie and like, oh, that's the artwork for this thing, which was way different than their artwork. You're like, when are you doing this? And it was like, eventually it's going to come. So there's a time I'm working for the Chicago Fire at the time, and Maria's puts a post like, we've got zombie dust bottles for the first time. And I called and I said, you got it? And you're like, yeah, we got it. And I drove down 55 and I got off at Ashland
That's
or however
amazing.
you get there and parked right there off the street and bought my first six-pack of zombie dust bottles. And I called you and you said, yeah, you got it. And it was the best.
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember when the beer was actually called Cenotaph, and we were pouring that first, and then
Mike's
they changed the name to Zombie Dust. But I remember we were honored with you were probably honored as well. No, yeah, Maria's got the Zombie Dust before anyone else did. Chris,
Nope, we got it very, very, very late, much later than most everybody else.
There was a New Zealand beer alongside it
I
in the
forgive you
tap
now,
room
Danny,
called
kind of.
Aotearoa, and no one was using New Zealand hops. And at the time, it felt like one of those two.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to say, if we're going to move, Don, when it comes to distribution, going back to that, do you think Trillium doesn't care when it comes to franchise laws or whatever it is? Trillium doesn't care that if their current distributor doesn't do it for them, they're not going to move to another distributor who can do it any better. At that point, right, it's just a choice of not distributing to Wisconsin at that point, no?
Or taking some time off until they can buy themselves out of the contract.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what their long-term goals are. I mean, if they're looking to get into chains or they're looking to get deeper distribution, then I think that they'll make a move. But I don't think that that's their goal here. I don't know enough about them to make any good guesses, but it sure doesn't seem like they're setting themselves up to be with the distributor network that's going to take them to the next level. Right. It seems like they're doing this to kind of come in, drop some beer, get the excitement, the buzz going, go away a little bit and drop a little bit more and make some cash. I mean, it certainly seems if they're not going with a larger distributor that's got more call point frequency that they're setting themselves up for the chance.
Call point for. I'm glad you said it because it was on the tip of my tongue. Call point frequency. I was about to say it. Hey,
I just
I'm
perked
about
up.
to say. Well, exactly. I perked up too. Let me see that 05 old school barley wine. If you don't mind.
There is
Thank
a lot
you.
of reading the tea leaves when you see they went with this distributor and it's in this cluster and that. Like,
100%.
what are they trying to do? Because if you see someone who's going with all these like an AJ Maca in every single state, you're like, okay, they're just trying to drop stuff. But if they're going with they're aligning with every Bud or every Miller House or like every this thing or every Reyes, so you're like, oh, they're trying to do something different. Like much more to the they want to become a brewery that does have that half barrel that needs to have boots on the ground and they put it everywhere. Or it's just like, this place gave us better terms, or we think that they're going to push our stuff. So,
it was kind of a fascinating week last week. Both National Beer Wholesalers Association meetings and the Beer Institute were both here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And there was a time about 5 years ago that it really seemed as if the breweries had gotten back the power in the relationship, that they were the ones that were, pushing price and pushing promotion and pushing new distribution. And it really has swung back quickly. I mean, it came back in such a quick fashion that there were none of the middle tier beer suppliers there at all. They were all gone. They were all wiped away by COVID. The Firestone Walkers of the world, they were there. The Sierra Nevadas, the New Belgiums, a couple of fast comers like Schilling Cider out of the Northwest were there. But on down the line, the top 35 breweries below number 10, none of them were there. I mean, it was all back to the world it used to be. It was Constellation, it was AB, et cetera. And it's exactly what you were saying about picking distributors. There used to be a minor league of distributors out there, and it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe
single A, but there's no like triple A.
Yeah, there's barely a single A, and that's no offense to some of these distributors.
Independent leagues.
Yeah, they very much so. You just nailed it. There's independent leagues exist, and then there's the big guys. There's a few markets left like Chicago, and we've talked about this before when I've been on about the strong ones like Glun's that exist and the old style network, etc. But there's very few markets that those types of distributors are even an option anymore. It's either the independents or it's the big guys. And there's nothing else.
Right.
What did you say? The big guys don't even want any more brands.
They don't. You know what I mean?
They don't exist for
man.
No,
and here in Chicago, I feel like some of the quote unquote big ones are dropping brands left and right. And I mean, there's a big craft distributor, I'm using air quotes, here in Chicago that is just blatantly saying we're not bringing in anyone unless they're bringing, I forget what the number was, but it was something like, I don't know, 3,000 barrels a month, or it was something like massive, some huge amount. So don't quote me on the number at all, but it was huge. And if you weren't bringing that in for them, they were no longer going to really be interested in what you're doing, whether you were under a contract with them or not, whether you had product that was still there, whether you had a new SKU that was available, that you had a new seasonal, you had a new year round. Just nope, we don't.
Yeah, I guess what it means though for the smaller breweries like
you're
us,
screwed.
You are in trouble. So if you're playing in the independent leagues everywhere throughout the U.S., you're not going to get as much attention as you might in the past from these mid-level people. But it's scary. So think about it. Most of the large players will never pick you up. They don't even need you. They're not going to entertain picking you up, so you're never going to get some massive distribution. So you kind of have to rely on these kind of Almacas of the world to do these hot drops all over the damn country as frequently as you can as a beer sells out. And it becomes even more complicated, even more messy for a small brewer to conduct business.
Right, because you have to have many of those Almacas all over the country then. You got to have them lined up.
And then the next step is that, if you do want to grow, then you're going to have to get those chain placements, and then the big guys will take a look at you once it's on a piece of paper, once it's in a shelf set. Yeah. Then they're going to take a look at you. The hardest thing is the fact that Edmar, you're exactly right. There is no independent league network. Some friends of mine that own Elite Beverage out of Colorado and Imperial out of Michigan, they're trying to form an independent network. I believe that there's 40 distributors currently across 32 states, and I might be making that up. It's the Sokola family.
That's really good to hear. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they're trying to do it. They're trying to piece together a network that if you want to go into, at multiple states, you'll have a network. But the country needs one, because I think even more scary is the fact that a lot of these major chains are starting to move in the direction of making their decisions on shelf sets 100% off of scan data. Yep. So if you aren't scanning anywhere, how do you ever get on the shelves in the grocery channel? How does that then shut down innovation? It really is a scary time, and it was really eye-opening. And I've been going to these meetings for 20 years. And it was really eye-opening to see the ball swing all the way the way. I mean, it used to be this way, and then craft kind of took over and innovation ruled, and now it has swung all the way back to the way it was. And there is just the top 5 breweries that control all the attention from the distributors right now in the United States.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that the top 5, you said distributors are controlling all the attention?
Suppliers.
Yeah.
So
right.
Anheuser-Busch, Constellation.
Right. So why do you think that they have so much leverage now when there's more craft share and more breweries than in the before time for sure? So why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because of the fact that craft has lost 1,500 SKUs off of the shelf sets in the latest. I mean, craft is getting kicked out of these sets so quickly. And for the distributors, who's easier to deal with? Somebody that's here's the difference between the little guys and the big guys. And I was just talking to a supplier on the way in the store today, and they're running around having individual annual business plans with each of their 31 distributors across the country. No, that is not the way you do it. You have one meeting with all of your distributors in one location. You don't suck up all their time, and you make their lives easy. And what is the problem is that over the last few years, all these little guys thought they were doing it right, and now they're just kind of, I hate to say it, they're kind
You
of...
say a little guy, like give me an example of who a little guy might be, hypothetically. Someone like, it could be, anyway, I don't know. Make up somebody. Someone the size of, but not necessarily...
Yeah, I can't name one.
You can't name one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't do that.
Okay.
But
make up a...
I'm sorry, we work with
Right.
we work with 200 suppliers across the country. I can't. Anyway, I'm talking about breweries, you know what I mean? And what's really happened is the fact that, to answer the question, is distributors want to go back to where it's easy. It's easy to deal with.
And store owners and the chains. Everyone wants
That's
to
what they want to deal with.
I don't know if this is what you're talking about, though, but like a lot of the things that the smaller breweries, tried to do, it's like to a certain extent, you don't know if once you get to that set, if they're concerned about that special lot of Citra that you picked over this. It's a totally different game, but it's a game that they decided they wanted to play because they knew if they had to play by the other rules, then they have to be a totally different brewery. So it's like they're purposely deciding they're going to stay within this space because if they have to play within that bigger space, those guys got it on lockdown. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, so how am I going to, it's like someone that randomly is picking up the beer at the grocery store. It's like, I don't think that they care about all that we put into the beer. And that's what, but it's like, but the small brewery decided that they were going to focus on this to sell to a certain segment because they wanted their ceiling to be a certain way, and they knew that they weren't going to try and get as big and mess with the Sierras and the New Belgiums and so I don't know. I don't know that they want to get necessarily involved in that because then they're a totally different brewery at that point. And
totally,
Jude,
but I think what maybe what's up?
I mean, I'm with you, Jude, but I think to your point, Chris, you said there's so many more breweries now today. What's happening? But the majority of breweries are really small. They're brew pubs. They're not even going to sell anything in stores anyways. The majority of breweries are starting are really small. And the big thing that I'm learning is that what Donn said is that COVID basically destroyed this mid-level tier. Like that's the biggest.
Right, this mid-level.
I think I haven't been on the Roundtable or on your podcast in a while, and I'm sure you maybe have talked about it. But like the fact that whole level of distribution has been wiped out, and we've talked and experiencing it personally. Lots of distributors having a hard time pulling the trigger on and placing orders, et cetera. Talking to other brewers about how their orders are being reduced. Like there's like a beautiful kind of game of risk being played by the larger suppliers. They know exactly what they're doing.
I think it started before. I think it started a little bit before COVID, and it went into hyperdrive during COVID, and it almost gave them reason to just kind of like put the gas down on that because a couple years or maybe 18 months or something, I forget exactly how long, but before COVID, one of the bigger distributors here who was getting pretty crafty and was cool and had some knowledgeable sales reps that they were bringing in,
just got rid of it.
Started saying like, this brewery is bringing in this SKU. Well, we're not interested in bringing it in. The first time it happened, it was like, wait, what? It had never been said before. Like, what? Wait, what? You don't want to bring it in? But the brewery, I talked to the brewery. They said they'll bring it in. I'll buy this much. I'll buy enough to make it worthwhile. I'll buy like a, one level of a pallet or something like that. And they're just like, no, we're not adding any more SKUs. Doesn't matter. We're not doing it. And I was like, whoa, that's a change.
That's because they had a Doug Walicki sitting there.
Right.
And saying, no more SKUs.
An evil Doug.
The evil Doug was there saying, no more SKUs, boys.
Doug with a goatee was sitting there saying,
Bizarro.
Data says there shouldn't be any more SKUs.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And it goes back to this. I mean, why bring on something that, may go old on the shelf, that, is going to take over a position that you're going to have to resell? They like things where the position is set. They've got your 12-pack of name your brewery. It is set in place wherever it is. The sales person doesn't have to go back in and sell that position on the shelf ever again. And
now those segments are taken care of by the big guys, where back in the day they weren't. Which is what we've, I've talked about on this show since the very beginning, is all they want to do is control the set and reduce the size of the set. They want it to be reduced. They want less
There's
choice.
only X amount of breweries
Agree.
that can do that, though. I mean, and they're built for that.
And they are all purchased.
They're
They're no longer craft breweries. They're all the Goose Islands of the country.
I would agree with that until I walked into Foxtrot. I was working out of Haymarket downtown. I don't even know what day today is. Today's Wednesday. On Monday. And
It's Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. Oh, sorry. On Monday.
Still
Yesterday.
Monday.
Sorry, yesterday. So yesterday I was working downtown, and I walked into Foxtrot. I was amazed by their selection. I mean, it was.
Yeah, but that's Foxtrot.
Yeah, but Foxtrot sells a lot of beer.
No, they do. They sell a lot of beer. They have great. It's all about curation.
Shout out to Dylan.
It's the hipster. It's Dylan's fault, really.
What's the brewery? And I can't remember the name over
His
on Milwaukee
was,
Avenue.
probably.
Hopewell.
Hopewell. Like this was in the West Loop. They dominated.
Yeah.
This. I mean, they had most of the beer in there. I was very impressed.
Great.
It also could be a bad sign that it's not selling.
I doubt it. I don't think Foxtrot is going to get caught in that. If it's not selling, I doubt it would be there.
But I was impressed by the fact that they had some big name brands in there. But for the most part, it was all independent. I was impressed that there was a chain, albeit a small one, that was still taking the shot on the smaller guys.
They also are trying to do that for every market they're going into too, and have specifically curated sets
every
but
product,
for
too.
local stuff and for every product. It's not just for the alcohol.
Yeah, it was impressive.
But the alcohol was also that's also a company that what we were talking about. Everything with scan data. They've gone slightly the opposite way, where a lot of it is the data of what they have. They're a very powerful data company too, but a lot of it was them specifically saying we're not going to be a 100% data-driven company. We need to be somewhat human curated.
Yeah, and I love when you say that. And the reason why I'm smiling is because of the fact that the value in that company isn't necessarily currently what they're selling out their stores. It's in the data that they're collecting that they're going to eventually get somebody like myself to agree to buy and resell for them.
You're drooling. You're literally drooling
I'm
right
completely
now.
drooling because the fact that it's amazing. What
I mean,
they're
you think
collecting.
he just popped another Coors Edge open?
Yeah, it's true.
I think
He's
you're
shaking.
saying
His hands
don't
are
walk
shaking
anybody
for an
with two
NA.
strikes. I think he was saying don't believe analytics.
Exactly.
I think the other thing with Foxtrot, though, is to all of the earlier points, is Foxtrot thrives on simplicity.
Yeah.
Like, you go in, you have a very small alcohol set. It's highly curated, good liquor, good wine, good beer. We're currently trying to sell in our Christmas sale. I hope you're listening. Bring it in.
They did go with it last year.
Went with it last year. Let's do it again. But no, I think that translates across to everything that you guys just said. That because we're going through that right now. We somehow slid in. Being 10 years old, we deal with a lot of chains and we sell a lot of beer in chains. Like that's just kind of the era that we got into, and we're very fortunate. And I still think, today, work with Donn to talk to him about a lot of this stuff, and I've learned a lot. But you see it happening in real time, and it's. There was an era where they wanted new, and now they're shrinking it, and you're not getting curation anymore. So you have a place like Foxtrot where if you're getting into that set, you're going to sell. It's a very small, it's like Trader Joe's. We're in Trader Joe's, love Trader Joe's. They're one of our best accounts, but it's a small liquor set. It's simple. And I think what we've seen at across wholesale in Chicago is that things have gotten so complicated. And then with COVID, I hate hearing the staffing thing. Everyone has different versions of what staffing looks like right now, but it is really hard to fulfill an order right now from start to finish and in distribution in general. And I feel across the board, no distributor is having an easy time right now. So it just feels like that's going to compound on itself even further where, if you can't get an order right, you might get thrown out of a store.
You're adding on to the point of why the distributors are shifting back to this model is because of the fact that they can't rely on the smaller guys to be able to produce the product, have it in stock so that they can go and fulfill it in the shelf sets.
Let's go down that path a little bit because you just had what's up?
Isn't that a shame though? Isn't that a shame? If you could be making really great beer. And I agree, from a logistics standpoint, it's all got to work out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's not worth the squeeze. And you got to think about people's jobs, and they're looking at things like making it easy. But if you're talking about there could be a lot of awesome beer that's not included, and maybe no one's necessarily interested in that because they want to bring it to a beer.
But it's not included at a chain. It's never included.
No, you're right.
It's barely ever included.
There's
in a chain.
other places where it will be. So I want to go down what the path of what Don was talking about earlier, because no, I'm glad you did. So I think it does suck, Jude. I mean, I think that's kind of what this show is all about, is how like there's other ways and other places to kind of to look for that stuff. But so you your company, 3-tier consulting, is that right?
3-tier beverages.
3-tier beverages. You put out some data lately on what the first 3 quarters of the year, and it was written up pretty heavily in kind of some of the trade mags, and I know Bart Watson has weighed in on what's going on, the chief economist for the BA, and it looks like there's this perfect storm brewing where it looks like the cost to manufacture is going up across the board. Like every aspect of creating beer is becoming more expensive. There and craft numbers are down again, and had a weak summer, which leads people to think that the winter is going to be even worse, because a lot of these places need to make to crack that nut in the summertime, to kind of fatten up for the winter, so to speak. So could you just speak to that a little bit about where you kind of see craft as its own thing, and then maybe even relative to the rest of alcoholic beverage right now, and where you see that heading into Q4?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, though, I tend to skew a little negatively when I talk about relations between the distributors and the suppliers sometimes, and that's probably why I'm unemployable. Listen, craft,
employ yourself.
Yeah. Craft beer is not dying. Beer is not dying. Beer continues to do what it does. I think Kate Bernat did a very good job of quoting some figures and shipments from the Beer Institute. We were tracking sales coming out of the grocery channels and out of the convenience channels. And while shipments overall, taxes paid, were down, and I think she quoted some stats down over the last 10 years. Overall, sales are up as far as dollars. I mean, specifically over the last 5 years.
Yeah, which was mentioned as well.
Yeah, I mean, sales are way up. I mean, when you start looking at
Bev
Alc, Bev Alc is flying. I mean, and if you look at 2018, Bev Alc sales in this country were, $73 billion, and then
volume down, but revenue up.
Wait, what is that word? Bevoc?
Yeah, Bev Alc.
Bev Alc.
Yeah, Bev Alc.
Alcohol. Okay.
Yeah, Bev Alc.
Bev Alc.
Yeah, because prices have gone up. Prices have gone way up. I mean, we're up, $88 billion of sales over the last 52 weeks. And then even when you look at sales over time and you start kind of diving into this a little bit more as far as who's been taking price, this has been price that's been taken across the board. You've got price going up in beer. You got price going up in wine, a little bit coming back in spirits. But if you look at beer's up 15% over the last 5 years. Wine's up 16% over the last 5 years.
All beer?
You're
just beer?
All beer in general.
Wait, I thought alcohol consumption was down.
No.
You're talking about revenue, though.
Revenue.
Revenue.
Overall
right.
revenue.
Volume down, revenue up. But it looks to me that, could that mean, Don?
Less beer, more money.
I thought you said all beer.
100%. 100%.
No.
Less beer.
All beer probably is up. Just because it has to, you can only go up from zero. Right. So I would say, could it mean that it hasn't reached the breaking point yet? So it's like, when cigarette sales started like creeping up and up, and they started taxing them and making them more and more expensive, eventually it had an effect. Well, probably a multifaceted effect, but is why like cigarette sales have gone down. But they definitely used that as like, well, eventually people are going to get priced out of it. And could it mean that the prices, revenue is up because prices are up, and consumers have still been buying at the same volume? Well, maybe slightly lower volume, but
you got to look at like prices in general when you do that, though. Like, you can't just be like in a vacuum beer prices are up 15%, but the prices of eggs are up like 48%.
Sure.
So.
That's very true.
If you were playing basketball and you were like, soccer is up and the NBA is, or in the NFL is probably, the MLB is up, but basketball sales are down. It's like, so are you going to get into basketball? I mean, you're going to get into soccer? Or are you going to get so it's like,
No.
When you see all these things that are happening, but it's like, what are you supposed to do at that point? You're going to get out of what you're doing?
You could buy less. I mean, and people are buying less, but at some point they could say, well, you know what? I'm just a Montucky cold snack guy now. I mean, I could see that happening.
I mean, as the beer. So we're talking about the beer segment. It's like all these other things are up. So what if you're? I mean, like what if you're a sport? And you're like, oh, so I'm going to go into the other sport and get into that thing because it's like, don't you ride or die with that? And are you going to make something better?
No, I mean, and I wish Mike just dipped because he was so upset. But he's the one who says that a lot of these people who came to craft because it was the cool thing at the time that they were getting into stuff, and some of them are going to start moving to the next cool thing, and maybe these increased prices are, I don't know, could play a role in it. I mean, Mike brings up a good point that if everything's going up, it's all relative, but I don't think you can just volume goes down, just increase your prices.
It's not going up. It's actually not going up fast enough. I mean, that's the one thing is that beer prices aren't keeping up with inflation. And, you're going to see, for the first time ever, you saw a price increase last year in February. You saw another one here in September. You're going to see another one come along here in this February. You could have 4 price moves in beer for the first time, ever.
I've never heard of that,
But the biggest thing that's starting to separate here that we've seen is the fact that non-alc sales overall are up 20%. Now, granted, it's on a very small base.
Yeah.
But anything in the alcohol content between about 1 and 8% is getting killed.
Yeah.
It's down 6% overall, and everything high ABV, once again on a very small base, is up 20% as well.
High ABV fermented or distilled, or doesn't matter?
Does anything 8%.
But not like, I'm not talking, not like 40%.
No, we're not talking about anything that's like blowing your socks off. We're talking just beer here. But the middle is getting squeezed, and it's getting squeezed.
Well, that's where all of it is.
Yeah, it's getting.
Well, all of craft. I mean, all of craft is there, right? I mean, well, you said 1 to what percent is
anything 1 to 8%?
Oh, 1 to 8
is down 6%. Anything 8% above is up 20.
Right, but that could also be Voodoo Ranger, like almost single-handedly.
Almost bought that this weekend,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a new Steel Reserve, man.
Right.
But we're not molding or modeling people who are predisposed to like spirits more than they like wine, or wine more than they like beer. I mean, it's just like,
I just think it's where the stuff's going. I mean, people I think are going with what is maybe trendy or cool. What were you trying to say,
Well,
Kevin?
the Voodoo Ranger thing, I feel
Forget
like,
you, Jude.
was it $8.99 for a 6-pack of Voodoo Ranger? Like,
right.
You get a double IPA for $9. There was I love reading Kate Burnett's stories. I think she does a very Burnett. Sorry, I thought
it's Bernat.
It's Bernat.
It's Bernat.
Bernat.
Yeah, I always say Cape Bernat as well. It's Cape Bernat.
It's Bernat.
All right. Well, anyways, I think she's a very good writer, and recently she wrote about Voodoo Ranger and the double IPA, kind of like low ABV is dead. And what we're seeing is that's not the case, at least in our small scope of being this brewery in Chicago. Like, our menu has almost completely changed to 5% beers. And
except for this barley one you brought today.
Except for this 13%.
But isn't that going back to how
barrel
it had been? Like, you had these low alcohol beers, and then you would put out something really special to commemorate something special that happened, and you would make it a big, high-powered beer. And then I think people saw, like, wow, people lined up for that big, high-powered beer. Well, let's do another one next month, and another one next month. You know what? Let's do 2 this month.
Let's do
3
Day
this
every
month. Let's do right. But I think
every day.
I do think there was some
do
of
7
that
of them a
like
week.
going on. But I think if you look back, it didn't used to necessarily be like that. Now, craft was always. I mean, 1 to 8% is still pretty high, but.
Yeah, but Kevin, you are the 3rd best brewery on Malt Row, aren't you?
3rd and a half.
3rd and a half.
Second best brewery at Begyle.
Absolutely.
Just kidding.
But to that same point, like, we can't, like, in our middle, like, all the breweries at this table we can't make an $8.99 double IPA. That just doesn't exist. So like when you hear that these sales are popping off and low ABV, like or that middle ABV beer might be dead, like it's like it's based off of this. Like,
they're killing you on price. I mean, it's
Yeah,
and the shopper doesn't care.
There's only two ways to compete. There's price, and then there's like your presentation and quality, right? Or quality being subjective, obviously, right?
Well, but Don is saying alcohol as well. I mean, Voodoo Ranger is what we're talking about. So it's like price per.
That falls into the price.
Yeah,
that just falls into price for commodity.
They've got affordable pricing and high alcohol, the two things that the consumer wants.
Right.
But if you're walking into a chain store and you see, you're like, oh, that's double 9% for 6 cans for $9. Like if I'm looking to get, my drink on, then that's a good purchase.
Right.
But if,
and there's millions of livings to be made existing completely outside of scan.
100%.
So, what we're talking about what is technically correct being like this is the best selling high ABV, like that's what people want when they're looking at a set of things in a grocery store, and that's a lot of where beer gets sold. But like
75 to 80% of it.
Right.
But there is a huge living, exactly what you're saying, living off of these 4-pack, 16-ounce cans,
Your tap room,
$18.99, the tap room models. I think the thing that gets scary is that everybody that has gone too far away from that model, that went chasing the chains with the independent league distributors,
right?
That's who's really in trouble now, and all the EIDL loans have dried up, all the PPPs have dried up.
Yep.
This is the year of the reckoning. I mean, it's going to be really bad for anybody that's not racing back to their home.
Right.
Everybody needs to race back to their home, which makes this Trillium thing really interesting. And I think it's fascinating because of the fact that they're one of the only ones that's racing outward, which is probably going to create even more of a buzz. So kudos to them.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that beer is just becoming more and more stratified. It reminds me of wine in a lot of ways too. I mean, you have the grocery store wines, you have the next tier wines, and then you have the wines that are kind of really high end and maybe at steakhouses, and then you have the wines that you've never even heard of, and there's no way that you're ever going to get it if you haven't known a guy for 10 years and stuff like that. Right.
Screaming Eagle is Trillium.
King, yes, Screaming Eagle.
Yes. SKKKREAMMMMM. Very wine brandy.
And I think that as it's stratifying, like in wine, there are different consumers, suppliers, retailers, and distributors for all of those. And I do think that maybe, beer is heading in that direction, and that to what Don was just saying, if you were trying to go for the, I don't know, like the Gallo family estate, mega Costco tier, and you didn't make the cut, and you're already have now lost cachet with the tier below. That's not necessarily a good place to be. But when Kevin was talking about pushing boulders uphill with high pricing and high alcohol, and Don was saying, well, I hate to disagree. And then I'm thinking, well, man, I'm seeing the exact same stuff. Like the gut or like what I'm just like kind of feeling is totally in line with what Kevin was saying. I'm kind of realizing that there are a million careers to be made outside of scan data, but it is 20%? It's only 20%.
Yeah, but it's frightening. It is frightening though to hear if you're starting to see the cracks in those products here, then those cracks are obviously going to work their way up into the larger stores as
we're talking about the high ABV products, the high ABV price point products.
The high price point 4-packs, is that what you're talking? 16?
It's Don, it's been going on for like a year now, man.
Just really slowing down.
Yeah. Well, but I don't even know how many of those.
And Jude has been very conscious of that for years, all the time.
Well, Jude only buys 12 packs of Pivo.
That's true. No, but Jude, I think Jude saw this coming, I think, before almost anyone. Just the way that his company has been pricing stuff all along. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, Jude. We have not talked about this in the past, but this is just how I've seen Hop Butcher kind of positioning themselves, considering your beer probably costs a lot of money to make, and did even more a couple of years ago when you didn't have your own facilities and you were contract brewing and stuff like that.
Yeah, we tried to
imagine.
keep quality. We try to keep our price and the quality for it at a certain point and be able to hang our hat on that. But at the same, going back to what Don was saying though, but you've always got to have those. You got to have some breweries, and you consider like a segment of the market that when they look at those beers, they say, I don't identify with those beers. Identify with the ones that have, might associate themselves with a certain price or might associate themselves with the saturation of a certain type of ingredients, because I don't buy into that story. I buy in with that story more. So I guess that goes in more positioning and focus and deciding like, this is money going in and money going out, and I'm good with staying this big or this small or whatever, but also being like, here's my core audience, and we're never going to be this brewery because all these other breweries got this on lockdown, but there's always going to be a certain segment that says, I don't identify with that. I identify with a brewery that talks like this or brews their beers like this, or, and it's like, and if you could find your audience and do it that way and make a living and find happiness that way, then those things could kind of coexist, but it doesn't need to be that you're always like shooting to be Sierra.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing that we're going to come up against is the fact that with all the inflationary pressures coming across every part of the marketplace, and then you've got every employee that wants to make more because of the fact that their dollars aren't going as far, you are going to be forced to stretch and sell more product to be able to not only pay for the higher costs of producing those products in the first place, but then also paying all your employees. I think that this is coming to a head at such a terrible time. There's less and less places to sell your products, and there's only so far you can go up in price.
That also is to talk about, to kind of parlay it into what you were saying, Mike, before, that like this inflationary thing is not just it's not contained only to beer. I mean, I think that's the same, if the economy is slowing down and inflation is going up, then those problems are going to be seen in a lot of segments as well, and a lot of businesses aren't going to be growing and aren't going to be able to give people raises like they used to. I mean, that's a recession which is probably coming, and it looks like the government is very well might try to pump the brakes on this stuff to kill inflation. So, I mean, it is going to happen, and I think, when the salad days aren't on, people aren't getting raises, man. I mean, that's just how it is. And then if you don't have a raise, you can't afford to buy, the super fancy pants stuff. But hopefully craft beer remains an affordable luxury.
Right.
I mean,
there's a big difference between knowing that you have to grow your business to be able to afford to give your employees cost of living raises or raises they deserve by performance, and being like, well, we have to follow the trends of Voodoo Ranger, right? Like, it doesn't always directly trickle down. Not to say that any of that isn't incredibly valuable to follow. Like, know that like higher ABV, lower price point, like, of course, but like,
right. If our prices at the Beer Temple are going up in line with inflation, then we should be able to give raises in line with inflation too, right? I mean,
theoretically. But kind of back what you were saying about Voodoo Ranger, and then if you think about the other brewery that they bought, I totally agree. You need to throw those out. I mean, those are what's driving the overall numbers when you look at scan, and those are the numbers that are going to be talked about. But I completely agree, on a scale where you're not selling into the Jewel Osco or the Marianos or the Bennies of the world here in Chicago, you do have to throw those completely out because they do skew the numbers.
Oh, and totally. How many big breweries have you seen? It cracks me up because you see a certain size brewery scrambling to put out a high alcohol, low price 16-ounce can, and that is, I would imagine, so foreign to what you're trying to do, Kevin. But like the bigger breweries, like that, look at Goose. Yeah. Goose is trying to do it because they're trying to get that.
They got billboards up all over. Right? They got billboards up all over town.
Yeah. They're trying to chase that Voodoo Ranger.
I don't know why a certain other brewery in town hasn't sued them yet. Every time I see that billboard, I think of that other brewery, and I can't be the only one. So it is pretty amazing that they've got those billboards up all over town. So
interesting. So
it's incredibly valuable to be aware of what's happening at every level of sales of beer. but know which one you're existing in and what one you're intending to exist in when you make decisions, right? Like,
yeah, and even be aware that there's more than one.
And like
first,
and know your customers probably better than a lot of people, but there's also probably blind spots. So maybe you don't. But
and when you lose confidence, that's when you start looking at some other people and following.
There's 10,000 breweries, and I would argue that a good chunk of them, like the one, don't directly compete with grocery store sales. To be honest,
I mean, come on, you can throw out 8,000 of those breweries. I mean,
right.
Probably 8,500 of them.
Right.
I mean, at the end, there's only
so
many.
Figure out what your business does, and like figure out how to keep your business safe in inflationary times.
I'd love to do a count of our largest liquor store here in Chicago and go to Benny's and count exactly how many different brands they have in there, because I think that would be pretty telling to go to one of them or a Total Wine up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the real number of the amount of breweries that there really are in America.
Yeah. And
which is shrinking in that case, Don, because the set is shrinking at places like Benny's.
Don, going back to what you're saying, though,
been.
I think like you know if you got two types of you have 2 or 3 different types of breweries, you set your ambitions to a certain point where it's like you can deal with your ambitions are set where you can you can kind of cuddle or impact or absorb some of the fluctuations in price and inflation, all these types of things that if you've dialed it in enough and you've factored it in where these types of unexpected things happen, you can still operate to be the brewery that you want to be, but it's all kind of like you set your ambitions to what you want to do. So even if all these things changes, you don't have to completely change. You're still prepared to operate.
For sure, Jude, I totally agree, but you're still a piece of the overall pie. And if the pie is shrinking, that does affect you. If
pie's not
less
shrinking,
people,
didn't you say pie's getting bigger?
Dollars overall are
Yeah.
getting bigger, not sales, but dollars are getting bigger.
Right.
So I mean, if okay, do you see that trend continuing?
I do.
You do.
Yeah, I
so
do.
you think dollar sales for beer is going to continue to go up?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. And I think that there's going to be more and more pressure on the higher end is going to continue to grow. I think that people are going to continue to buy luxuries, high alcohol luxuries, 4-packs or 6-packs at a very high price. And I think that they're going to keep moving towards the non-alc. I mean, the non-alc's explosive. I mean, that's going to continue to grow. But I think that people are drinking less overall. But I think when they are drinking, they're drinking to get messed up. So they're drinking high-gravity products.
Very interesting. It almost seems like it's I think it's 2 different sets of people, frankly. But yeah.
Well, and I think it goes back to I think what we were talking about before, deciding who you are. I think you're either a brewery that's just selling out of your own location, or you're a brewery that's just selling to Beer Temple, or you're a brewery that's just selling to Benny's or just to the grocery store. There's all those levels all the way up.
So if beer is shrinking in the set, if craft beer is shrinking, if it's less a smaller part of the kind of consumer retail experience at the normal outlets that they're used to, you don't think that's going to affect their willingness to go and search out the small guy? I mean, I don't see how those two are not related.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, I would agree that it would probably impact that, but I don't really know, Chris. I don't know how people. I mean, I don't go out like I used to, so I don't exactly know what the trends are inside of all the tap rooms and how they're all doing right now. But I do know that when you look out there, yes, beer is being cut out, but overall malt beverages are not. So if you look at the category that includes seltzers of the world and all the alternatives.
Well, seltzer's down too now, isn't it?
It's down as far as SKUs as well. But when you look at the overall category, there's still plenty of SKUs to go around.
Right. Right. No, I mean, I think people are going to keep
not like they're
drinking.
It's not like they're taking out aisles and aisles of.
But to me, that even is more worrisome for craft beer, because if people are continuing to drink but they're moving away from craft beer, I would have to imagine that even if it has to be proportional some way to the little guy and the big guy. So even if there are plenty of people who can, if it's going to be harder to make it as a big craft brewery, I'm guessing it's also going to be harder to make it as a small craft brewery, as I guess is a very simple way to put it.
I think you're right, Chris. I think it's, I've been saying all year that beer, craft beer is flat. It's flattened, and your data proves that the volume's gone down. Sure, maybe the dollars have gone up, and I worry about people I know who were thinking about getting into buying a brewery. I worry about all the breweries that are closing or on the verge of closing. You're straight about this year being the very deadly year for craft breweries. This year and next year, you're going to see a lot of fallout from COVID and the inflation. You're right. We're seeing it already. It's a pretty bad time. Like, this year's worse than the previous year. This year is worse than the first year.
This is the year that seems that people were saying was going to happen for the past 3 years.
Exactly.
This actually feels like it now.
Yeah.
Right. I still feel like we're on the upslope of the what would you call it, the bell curve. So it seems like it's going to get worse before it gets better. Is the vibe I get? Does everyone agree?
I think we've gone past the apex of that. I think we're already at just looking at this is a very specific data point, but the used equipment auction market is insane right now.
Yeah.
There are 20-barrel brew houses that have been on the market for, these auctions usually only last a week, and Kevin and I text one back and forth to each other, like, 0 bids on this 5,000 20-barrel brew house.
Yeah, the one in Wisconsin. There's one in Wisconsin that's been up for sale for a while.
Yeah.
So,
and so
there's one that goes live tomorrow. It's like got amazing equipment. Like there's one that's closing tomorrow.
I'm looking for a flash pasteurizer, guys.
Well, if we see one, I'll send it to you. Like, they show up a lot, actually.
Location as a flash pasteurizer.
Oh, buy that. Can't afford not to.
Something about like all this. I think it all kind of comes back to one thing that I think Mike and I have talked about this. I think people who are making really good beer and have established brands and have relationships, like, they can beat out the trends and things like that, because I think we're beyond the point of, like, there was a point in craft beer where it was like, let's taste as much beer as we can. And I think that there were some situations where people got along long enough because they were new customers were coming in and trying it. And I think now, like, making really good beer, like, if you're not making good enough beer for somebody to return, it's going to be tough. It's unfortunate because, we talked about living the dream earlier. Like, you started one business and it grew. Well, for every story where you started and you were successful, there's a story of, like, not. And so, I think that's one thing that we've always focused on for the last 10 years is, always improving, always being willing to talk about the flaws or something that might have gone wrong, or trying to make the best product that we possibly can, because at the end of the day, the beer has to taste good.
Right.
Yep. You critique yourselves. You're pretty harsh on yourselves. You have to be. And along with that, of course, always constantly improving the way you make beer. Our strategy is also diversification with the other product lines that we have, right? Kind of saw that direction of what was happening with craft beer. I was the alarmist 3 years ago. Chris, probably there's a recording of me saying the sky's falling. Don probably pinched me when I said that.
No, I probably agreed with you.
And then, that's why we also specialize in these other non-alcoholic beverages. We make our own hop water, right? We make our own NA beer now. We make the elixirs, the seltzers, CBD drinks, etc. We have a spirits line now. We have a DSP. We make cocktails. We do everything we can. We want to make the best drink no matter what it is, in the kind of Mars way. And if we didn't do that, I think we'd be in a lot more serious situation than we are, in general. If we didn't do that, we'd be in deep duty right now.
It also, you have to think seriously about how you fund and how you plan to expand your business, right? Like, if we were to rewind the tape maybe 8 years, everyone's saying, we just want to have, like, slow and steady growth. And if every brewery that said that adhered to that, they would all be fine. But then you saw, that's open field running on this podcast from Tony McGee, and everyone's like, it's open field running? Oh, okay, let's take on some debt structures that we don't really understand, and we don't really know if we're going to be able to pay them back unless we hit on all of these numbers already. And so,
yeah, he won, by the way.
He won. He knew it was won. Well. He was already he was basically on the 2-yard line, where he's like, "You guys can run from the 20, and you can make it to the end zone as well." Oh yeah, the defense is still there, but anyway, he definitely won. But it's like how you operate, run, and actually approached financing your business has a lot to do with who's going to survive as well. Just like, you have to make good beer too, but the way you approached growth over the last 4 years, and timing. It's timing for a lot of
and
people,
listen,
dude.
good
Timing is huge.
It's all of them put together. I mean, to be fair, Lagunitas made great beer for a long time, had a strong brand, had a hugely strong culture, saw some of the movements several steps before anybody else, made the right moves, and
got out
that's
first.
why they ended up the way they did. I don't think any of that was really an accident.
I mean, they were such winners. They caused another brewery to be the biggest winners too.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's
Ballast
how big.
point. Right.
Like it's insane.
Yeah, and
Right.
they got to double dip.
Yeah.
You know, they sold their brewery and then sold their distillery.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yeah.
And then they also made Ballast Point $1 billion.
Yeah.
So,
They double won.
by being so good.
Right.
And in 2012, I had the distinct pleasure of introducing myself as my startup brewery at Revolution Brewing Company during the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild meeting. And then Tony McGee got up after me and said, "Oh yeah, I'm opening a brewery in Chicago too." It was a big day, big day.
But it goes back into, money coming in, has got to be greater than money going out, and when you it's just, when you look at it on paper, you've got to build that in, and you've got to build things going wrong, and it's always about money going in and money going out.
For
And
sure.
hopefully you build it where it
Is
takes
this
into
your
account-
new podcast? Money in, money out with Jude.
Personal
Exactly.
finance.
Just a Mark LaRose advice that he always says. It's all about money going in, money going out.
The worst part of that is that you don't know when the money's coming out based on massive crises.
Right.
And you get hit by those when you never expected, never wanted to happen.
I just like this pyramid scheme that he's pushing. Hey, you give me $20 and I'll give you back $24, and then you give me 20. It's perfect. Build your own pyramid scheme.
But factor in worst case scenario and say, what if really were to go south, and what does that mean?
I mean, we have that worst case scenario emergency plan in place all the time.
The ejection, the hovercraft. Yeah.
I just said the S word at 10:20 p.m.
Yeah, if I sell the hovercraft, you guys know everything's going poorly for me.
Wait, if who sells it?
I mean, my cousin. I mean, wait a minute.
Wait, who?
What?
Wait, you guys are related?
You didn't know.
Oh, your cousin's a mechanic.
This episode's not
marriage.
canonical. Don't worry about it, guys.
Got it.
Edit this part out.
Yeah, write that down.
Edmar gave away the game at 10:21.
I do go back to what I said before, though, and I think it's important to always remember that listen, craft is in trouble, but just bad operators are in trouble, and they're not all bad operators, but just people that didn't set themselves on the right financial footprint and they expanded too far. Those people that are in trouble. But
And on either side are going to get caught up. So some guys are going to get lucky and make it through, and maybe they shouldn't, and some really good operators are going to get caught up and close. I want to make it very clear that not everyone who closed was because they were a bad business person or made bad beer necessarily.
No, and unfortunately,
happen.
I don't think that both those things matter at the same time. I mean,
Right.
There's a lot of people that make a lot of bad beer that are pretty successful.
Yeah, and because
I also think regularly about how lucky I feel to have opened a business. Like, obviously, it was a tough time, but I've opened a brewery when the expectation wasn't to 1,000x your production. Like that was what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, you could be hurting as a result of that right now.
And it was supposed to be easy. Like, I was like, if I can triple this, that'd be great over the next 40 years. But I mean, there's a lot of people who made great beer and did everything right are probably going to be in trouble in the next year or two because of exactly what I was talking about with the structure of the debt or whatever they're.
And luck, timing, like when they opened up, this was like
so
what
much of
they
it is
were.
timing. Mm-hmm. So much, honestly, Trillium, a lot of that is timing.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the right place at the right time and making the right beers. And
they were the first to the game on the biggest style of craft beer to have come along since IPA.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. So, not to say that they're a bad. I'm not saying.
I think they are excellent business operators. Obviously, a lot of people can be in that timing in that space and not do what they did.
Like Lagunitas, they're not the only brewery that opened and was doing what they did.
Smoked a bunch of weed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what you got to do.
So that's the key. Is you got to be timing and be stoned.
High.
You got to be high.
That's what Tony said when he was on the podcast.
Basically, you remember that Ed, you were there, kind of. You weren't at the table. You were below the table.
If you
You're on your knees.
If you recall,
He was below the table at
If
the
you
time.
recall, Tony and I had a relationship
Oh, I witnessed
that
it.
was like a very personal one for me.
Yeah.
And supplicating to another man publicly in front of a radio show is
Never felt so good.
It was the best thing I've
Did
ever
you
done.
feel what? How did you feel when he left money on the dresser, and then said "That's for
felt it
you"
was
and
right.
walked
I
out?
felt it was right.
Walgreens mentioned
It
on
was
this
right.
podcast?
It
Yeah.
was.
Walgreens
indeed,
was, yeah.
They were doing the sex
I had
for
no problem
Walgreens.
with that, Chris.
Okay. I
It's
just
a
thought it
classy,
was.
it's a classy way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, my 14-page
almost the
interview
full
in
amount.
Mash Tun Journal did not include that scenario, but it was written from that perspective.
I think that was the string of like the first 5 Beer Temple Insiders
Yeah, it was one of the
Roundtables.
first,
Like,
yeah.
Tony McGee was on like
Yeah.
That was
3
the
of the first 10 or something, right?
We should do a Mystery Science
Let's
Theater
call Tony
3000
right- you know
of
what?
that episode.
Let's call Tony.
a director's
Let's
commentary.
call Tony
on it.
right now and dial him in,
Let's
shall
just
we?
do it. Let's just do it.
I'll call him
Yeah,
right
call
now.
him.
Okay,
All right, great.
cool. Thanks. Okay.
Did you pick up?
Hold on. He's Snapchatting him now.
Well, listen,
Okay.
I think this episode's over.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think it basically
All right.
is. I
I
think.
hope you guys had a good time.
Yeah. Why don't you? Do you have any closing comments, Ed? Why don't we go
thanks-
around
Call to
before we head out?
You know
yeah.
what? Speaking of dreams, guys, it's always great that you referred to the dreams, like the dream, right? That's what our code name was for Mars. Was Liquid Dreams was our code name when we started our brewery. So we're actually celebrating eight years this weekend on October 22nd. So it really is kind of crazy. You think about it,
It's great. It's nuts.
but 10 years, dude, 8 years. Like, what has been going on? So that's exciting for us, Chris. And thanks for having me at the table again, whatever this podcast is called.
Yes. Beer Temple Podcast is now what it's called. Although this is a roundtable episode.
It's a rectangle.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's okay.
A rectangle.
It always has been. I mean, let's be real.
Don't ruin the illusion.
Okay. Well, you're the one who called it out.
All right. My bad.
Anyone
Please
else?
keep listening.
Kevin, anything you'd like to say? You don't have to say anything.
No, I mean, thanks
Plugs
for
are
having me.
fine.
Good
Okay.
to be back post-COVID. And
You guys releasing any beers soon?
are we releasing? Oh, thanks, Mike. Wrap it up.
No
We're
calls to
releasing
action,
our gold medal barrel-aged imperial oatmeal stout on 11/11/22.
Very cool.
Yeah, Friday,
Where?
November 11th at Begyle Brewing, the third best brewery in Malt Row, Chicago, Illinois. Third and a half best brewery.
Bravo.
Yep, 10 years. We're scanning in all the grocery stores, which is great. Hopefully we'll be able to keep scanning next year. We'll find out in the spring when resets are done.
Keep on scanning.
But yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be making beer in Chicago, drinking beer. Excited for my neighbors at Hot Butcher to open. When are you going to open?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. He's going last.
And
He's going last.
That's the mic
He's gonna
drop.
drop
He's
the
going to
day.
give a date.
I just want to know so I can tell people when they ask me.
And
gonna be
then we'll do a
Patreon
Mystery
episode.
Science 3000 in another, 250 episodes from now when they're still not open. We'll be like, listen to that.
Oh, dang. We do 50,000 of them a week, though. So
We're just super excited to have Jude and the gang in the neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. I love it. I live there. Chris lives there. Mike lives there. Does anybody else live there?
No.
No. Oh, you don't know.
My daughter goes to school there.
There. Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. So happy to have another world-class brewery in the neighborhood to bump us down to fourth and a half.
Oh. Don, Jude, anyone?
I just wanted to give a shout out to my friend Rob Todd at Allagash. I'm very sorry.
the slickest name in the game. 6 letters, 2 words.
I'm sorry I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm sure you miss me very, very much.
He does listen, so I'll let you know what he says.
I have no date for the tap room opening, but with all due respect to all the cities in the country that make beer, I think Chicago is home to the best breweries, the breweries that make the best beer. And I feel very thankful to be at this table with everybody in the Chicago scene, because I think we got the greatest scene, and it's just a ton of fun just to sit, at 10 o'clock at night and just speak with all you guys. So, right on.
Sweet.
I double down on that. You're right. Chicago is one of the best cities in the world for beer. And if you're listening, I don't care where you're from, our beer destroys yours.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that we were named like the best beer city. It's funny, you would think that was mentioned. I forget. You would think that would be
the same. We're the best. Avondale Weekly that named Avondale the 16th coolest city in the
world.
We're the best beer city. We're the best city to visit.
City, yeah.
We're the best. We have one of the best neighborhoods that we're currently in right now, depending on what realtor you're talking to.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, we're the best. Except for you. Except we're the 4th and a half best brewery in December.
We're 4.5 from the best, baby. That's how you got to think of it. You're 4.5 from the best.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
We can only go up.
Exactly.
Oh no, there's 167 breweries in the metropolitan area.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I am proud to work with the 4th and a half best brewery on Malt Row.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well that's great. That's really heartwarming. I thought it was going to be a downer of an episode, but there you go.
Yeah, really put a bow on it at the end.
Yeah.
That's what we do here.
Anything you would like to say, Mike?
Every week I think I should have some more to say, but no, I'm just happy to do a round table that with 6 people, get a little raucous, talk about some interesting stuff. Yeah, it was a good episode. Thank you for coming on, everyone.
Yeah, we're doing a goofy episode. Well, no, a fun episode, I guess. Next, not that this. Well, no, a silly episode. A silly episode.
Oh, you have
week,
a future goofy episode, huh, Chris? A future goof.
We're doing like a 4th and a half best episode. We're doing like a Begyle episode. It's classic Begyle style episode next week. We're going to be doing our. Is it going to be our another fantasy draft next week? Yeah. We'll be doing that, bringing that chestnut back. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that
Everyone's
goes.
clamoring for it.
Yeah, it's true. We still have never announced the winner of the last one, which was me. No, it was me. By far dominated that one. So we'll see. But I want to thank. I did. We had it was a public vote. So which is still open. Well, you can. I'll give you the link. I want to thank our guests, right? Jude of Hop Butcher for the World.
Opening on.
Yep, exactly.
Don's up next.
Yep, Donn of 3-Tier Beverage. Thank you for coming on, Donn. Ed Marzewski of Upstairs.
Oh my God, is that a hovercraft?
Thanks for keeping it down. God.
Did you call your Uber hovercraft?
It's smoking and it ain't moving.
He's yelling cuz.
That thing is a lemon, man, because that thing it's getting towed. There's
I
a
think
tow truck.
You need a new jeweler.
Yeah. That thing is a lemon because, I can. It's completely tarnished, and I can already see some of the flaws in the jewels.
Listen, like the used hovercraft is
the market
is crazy. I don't know if you know about inflation.
Oh my gosh! Now's the time.
Wild.
Now's the time.
I know someone who totaled their hovercraft, their bejeweled hovercraft.
Guys, let's go.
Edmar,
we're doing bits, Edmar.
Edmar, please.
And
they are. Everyone is looking out the window now, which is great.
I
want to thank Ed for coming on. Appreciate it. And Kevin, long time. Thanks for coming back. We have to have you back on. Sooner than last time. You too, Jude. It's been a long time, man. What the hell?
Not on the round table. I mean, not in general. On the round table.
Yeah, on the round table. Yeah, exactly. I also want to thank the Fade Master. It was a highly technical episode, very difficult.
Flawlessly executed.
Also, what was flawlessly executed was the Chicago Marathon, by the way, by Surge. You saw the Fade Master running it, right?
He was fading in and out. I could barely see him from left to right, and he was just cruising, and he did it.
That's great.
Yeah, he was.
Did he have headphones on?
He was running with the Roadcaster, fading in and out, like just fading, practicing his fades for the show while running a marathon.
Didn't even realize what had happened by the end of it.
No.
Congratulations.
And one bingo all in the same week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What a week for you, huh?
Oh. And thanks to Lumpin again. Thanks to everybody. We had some letters we didn't get to. We'll try to get to it in the next couple weeks. But keep them coming. We very much appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. So long.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard